this is something that the Jets just kind of deserve. It's the most Jets thing, and we honestly kind of deserve it a little bit. Not as fans, but the organization kind of deserves it. We deserve to get embarrassed by our former quarterback. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome into another edition of Moving the Goalpost. I'm Nick DiMartino. That's Johnny Montalbano. You can follow us across social media at MTGPETB. You can follow the Empty the Bench Network across social media at ETB Network. You can follow me on Twitter at Nick DMart. You can follow Johnny at Montalbano NY. You can watch all Empty the Bench shows on YouTube.com/ETB Network. You can listen to Moving the Goalpost wherever you get your podcasts, and make sure to like and subscribe. And this show is presented by Playback. Stay tuned for later in the show to find out more. All right, so we kind of had to call a couple of audibles for the rundowns. So we ended up with a pretty crazy Sunday Night Football. It was actually about as good of a week for week one as we could have asked for. It started off super bizarre. Like I said, the NFL isn't scripted, but if it were scripted, it would look similar to the way it looks. And I'd say that about week one. That's kind of just what it looked like. Between Spitgate, something I've never seen before. I've never seen a player in any sport get ejected for spitting on an opponent. I've never seen that before.
In the first play, no less.
Yeah. Yeah, before the first snap of the season.
Yeah. And then, yeah.
Yeah, but this Bills-Ravens was, it's certainly possible this ends up being the AFC Championship game. And this was just crazy. It looked like the game was over up until 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter. And I don't know what your reactions to this was, but I guess the ultimate question is, was this like the Ravens losing the game, or was this more the Bills winning the game?
Well, first off, I agree with you. I think I'd be surprised if we don't see these two teams matching up again in January, and maybe, like you just said, maybe we'll see them in the later round in the AFC Championship. I think because when you look at the history of how these two when they play each other, I almost think this is more the Ravens losing it, because this is a problem that they had. You know how we've talked about how the Bills can't beat the Chiefs in the playoffs?
Yeah.
Well, it's like a Venn diagram. The Bills can beat the Ravens, but they can't beat the Chiefs. I definitely think when you're up by 15 with 4 minutes to go, when you're the Ravens and you came into this year, and I'm very high on them this year. I'm very high, especially because I think they finally have shored up their defense. Well, that defense cratered in the final half of that fourth quarter. But you also have to give the Bills a lot of credit too, because Josh Allen is out there also on a mission to prove that he can finally get this team over the hump. I mean, he's done it, but this Bills team to get over the hurdle of the Chiefs and the AFC as a whole. So I definitely think this is really, though, about the Ravens as well. But the Bills at the same time, I think they put a stat that this is only their third win after being down by 15 with 4 minutes to go. So I do think, though, this is really more on the Ravens, because I've been high on their defense, and to just basically fall apart like you have. You put up 40 points with that all-world offense and not able to come out with a win. I know it's only week one, but keep this game in the memory bank and write this game down, because this is something we may be talking about when we get to the end of the season and we're looking at tiebreakers, or we're looking at a fact of like who's going to have the home field advantage. Say these two teams meet again, maybe in Buffalo for the AFC Championship. Keep that in mind. You'll be writing this game down, even though it is only week one. That is not an overreaction.
Yeah, it's also, look, something like this can't happen unless it's a little bit of both. Like, if Josh Allen weren't phenomenal, like you're not seeing Zach Wilson do something like this. Like, so I think it had to be, in all honesty, it had to be a little bit of both. I mean, if I had told you within the last I know technically it was within 4 minutes, but really it was more within 6 minutes, because that's when the drive started. But if I had said to you in the middle of the drive that, what if the Bills come back and win or come back and tie it up, I'd be like, well, you'd be like, well, everything has to go wrong. You know what I mean? Every possible thing has to go wrong, which the Ravens wouldn't even have anticipated. I mean, if every little thing didn't just go wrong, I mean, first of all, if you want to talk about in terms of the Ravens blowing it or the Bills winning it, I mean, like I said, a little bit of both, but I think I agree. I think the emphasis has to be more on the Ravens just choking this. And there are times when, teams like in basketball, for instance, when the Knicks played the Pacers and at the end of game one, where Andrew Nembhard just hit, I don't know what it was, 7 straight threes, and Tyrese Halliburton had that 3-point, had that game tying, that game tying shot that hit the back of the rim and then bounced in. Like things like that, there's not much you can do about, because sometimes the other team just goes off and there's nothing you can do about it. But in this case, I feel like the Ravens had to do everything wrong in addition to the Bills doing everything right. And late in the fourth quarter, the Ravens defense couldn't stop a nosebleed. I mean, Josh Allen made it look completely effortless just getting down the field. Not to mention, there were a couple of really stupid penalties. One of them a pass interference penalty on one of those drives, which was another issue. But everything that the Ravens defense, it seemed to just completely shut down. Just completely shut down towards the end of the game. And if that doesn't happen, the Bills don't have a shot to come back and win. Now, also the Derrick Henry fumble, but really that was just the Bills punching the ball out. Like, it wasn't, to me, that was not the equivalent of like the Mark Andrews drop in the end zone, because that was more of a good play than it was Derrick Henry just fumbling on his own. But if that doesn't also happen, if that doesn't happen, then the Bills can't come back and win. So the Ravens just really had to do everything wrong in their power in order to lose this game. And the thing is that now this is, and we talked about this last year, that the biggest problem with the Ravens has been their defense. And now that looks like the issue hasn't changed, when their defense completely just shut down towards the end of the game. In fairness, their offense kind of shut down too. I mean, they had that 3-and-out when they just needed to get a first down to just end the game. And, their offense didn't look very functional either. But the issue was way more their defense, because they should have been able, even with the Derrick Henry fumble, there's no reason the Ravens should have lost that game. They had no business losing that game regardless, even with the Derrick Henry fumble. And we wouldn't even be talking about it. So I just think everything just functionally went wrong.
Yeah, you lose a game where Derrick Henry runs for 169 yards and 2 scores, and that was the one thing that the Bills did last year in the playoff game, was contain Derrick Henry, and they couldn't contain him on Sunday night as well. And think about the fact that the Bills only score 7, 6, and 6 points in the first 3 quarters, and then they explode for 22 in the fourth. So that was the one thing the Ravens, I thought, did very well in the offseason, was shore up their defense, because it struggled. Like you said, it struggled in the first half of last year. It did get better, and of course, there's plenty of time for it to improve. But, I mean, when you're thinking about the fact that, to me, these are the 2 favorites in the AFC this year over the Chiefs, and it could come down to a game like this determining home field advantage in, let's say, an AFC championship matchup. That's why people are probably saying, well, I think we're all overreacting to one game. Not really, because this could be where it could be determining home field advantage, and could be determining the AFC championship and the representation into Super Bowl 60 at the end of January into February.
Well, right now, the Bills, I don't know how it was going into the game, but the Bills are the number 1 favorite team to be the 1 seed out of the AFC. It's not telling you who's most likely to come out, but I'm sure it's very similar. They're plus 100. Ravens are plus 475. The Chiefs are all the way down at plus 900. The Chargers and Broncos are both ahead of the Chiefs for the AFC 1 seed.
Well, and trying not to overreact to the Chiefs, but that game, losing to the Chargers on Friday night down in Sao Paulo, Brazil, that actually did cause some concerns for me with the Chiefs, because now they have a couple of key injuries that they have to look at as well. And I think this was going to be the toughest road for the Chiefs to get back to the Super Bowl, because I think as well as that team is, they've got some challenging opponents. Just look at this upcoming week in week 2. They got a Super Bowl rematch against the Eagles. I mean, can you imagine them starting 0-2?
Yeah, it's hard to imagine, but
I mean, to be fair though, you know what? We did see the Ravens start 0-2 last year, and they turned it on, and they did make it to pretty far in the playoffs. So there's definitely plenty of time, but we'll see.
And if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure one of those losses was to the Raiders.
Who's that? The
Ravens.
Yes, in week 2. Yeah,
which is a bad loss. Certainly a bad loss. I mean, I think
every team. You know, it's funny though, Nick. I think every team, especially every good team, even throughout the course of the season, has that one very, very bad loss that you just look at and say, "How did that even happen?"
Yeah. Although sometimes, or another thing that often happens is that at the time the loss feels worse than it really actually was. Like the Jets Broncos last year, like at the time when it happened, I thought, how did we lose to the Broncos? And then later in the season, I was like, how did we only lose by 1? So like a lot of times that also is a pretty common thing in the NFL.
Now, maybe the good thing for the Ravens is week 2 they'll be home and taking on the Browns. Now, again, like last year, they were home in week 2 and they lost to the Raiders. So you would think bounce back for the Ravens right away. But imagine they go into an 0-2 hole. This time, maybe it might be a little different because the Bengals may have rebounded a little bit because it's their 1-0. And that game against the Browns, they won. Wasn't pretty, but they got the win. And I think mentally for them, I think that's a big deal. So there's definitely a lot to take away from this game. Not only the fact that, the Ravens blow, the Bills coming back, but I think this game could have major, even though it's only a week 1 game, this game could have major ramifications in the AFC as we head into January.
Yeah, because the difference between, say, the Chiefs, the Bills, and the Ravens might just end up being razor thin. And it really could come down to a tiebreaker for all we know between the Bills and the Ravens. So, which would be decided by this game.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, who really knows? But yeah, you're right. It just seems like the Bills have the Ravens number. And it's just like this same issue that maybe the first half of the Ravens season is going to look very similar. And the thing is, I don't know, just like the Chiefs, I don't know how much the Ravens can afford to have like a slow start. I mean, just like the Chiefs have the Chargers and the Broncos in their division, which are kind of threats. I mean, the Bengals, I think, also can be a threat to the Ravens. And for all we know, possibly even the Steelers, depending on what they end up looking like. I mean, last year they had a really, really good season. At least the first half. They ended up crashing and burning at the end like they always do. But they had a good enough record to make the playoffs. And they're still in like a very similar situation. Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson are both similar situations, both washed up quarterbacks that can still kind of play, except now the Steelers actually have more weapons on offense than Russell Wilson had. So, the Steelers can even be a bit of a threat to the Ravens. The Bills are different. I don't think anybody in the AFC East is nearly as much of a threat to the Bills. And I think part of the reason the Bills are so high in terms of being the 1 seed in the AFC is because their division is pretty weak. But just in terms of, I'd have to, it's not even just like this one game. It's also just from the Ravens perspective, it's also the sign of it. Like, it's not just that they lost to the Bills, which is very consequential. It's the sign of, how do you blow? Like, if you blow this game, of blowing that game, that you didn't have a 15-point lead secure with 4 minutes left. That's another concern.
And it could be mental too, because did you see that crazy stat about how many games that John Harbaugh has lost as with a double-digit lead? I thought it was it was something staggering. I'll look it up. Let's see if I can find it real quick. But it's staggering, and it may also play into the mental mindset. Mm-hmm. See if I could find it for you real quick. but it's just yeah. So think about this: since 17 blown double-digit leads for John Harbaugh. It's the most by any coach. Not 17 double-digit second half leads. It's the most by any coach since 1991.
That's just throughout his career as the Ravens head coach.
I would. Well, he's been their coach for a very, very long
time. Well,
so
my only question is that misleading, because is that just like all of his, because he was a head coach at the Ravens for a long time. Is that just cumulative because he was the head coach of the Ravens for 20 years now, close to?
Yeah, I mean, actually, it's funny because if you look at some of the tweets, they actually have like a combination post of all the games that they lost when they were leading by double digits in the second half, and some of them are just mind blowing.
I gotta look. It's on Twitter.
Yeah, I could send it to you in the side chat here. But I mean, if you look at this,
oh my God, I see it.
Yeah, I mean,
some
of them are going to blow your mind. I mean, the one on Sunday night, blow your mind. Up 15 in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I thought the game was over, but look, Ravens when they were up 31-17 against the Browns, 13-3 against the Steelers. Yeah, this is becoming a bit of a theme for the Ravens.
So and that could play the mental mindset. They could tell you as much as it's not, but if it continues to happen over and over and over again.
And maybe it's not so much a mental mindset. Maybe it's a structural mindset. I mean, like it almost is a structural thing, because to me, when the defense is just so bad and it looked the way that it did, I mean, some of it was like some of the blown coverage in some of those plays was just astonishing.
Absolutely, you're right.
And without a bunch, like, it wasn't just that Josh Allen was amazing. There had to have been a lot of blown coverage. Blown coverage in order for the Bills to end up winning that game. And that to me tells me there's something structural if it keeps happening that way.
Think about it. What in the offseason, you'd think they shore up that defense too.
Yeah.
And they do this.
Yeah. So anyway, staying in the division, well, sort of. Aaron Rodgers embarrasses the Jets. I was actually pleasantly surprised by how well the Jets played. They played better than I thought they would have played, for sure. Justin Fields actually looked good. Justin Fields looked better than I expected, and I was surprised by. I was sort of surprised by how Aaron Rodgers looked, because, but I did kind of say that I think that he's going to have like a better year than people expect him to have. I didn't expect him to look this good, and I will say, we can break down the game a bit, but this is something that the Jets just kind of deserve. It's the most Jets thing, and we honestly kind of deserve it a little bit. Not as fans, but the organization kind of deserves it. We deserve to get embarrassed by our former quarterback. But you know what? I'm more hopeful about the Jets season now after watching this game than I once was, because I used to have negative hope. Now I have like neutral hope. Like, you know, now it's a little bit better than negative hope. So I have to say I'm pleasantly surprised with how well the Jets played, and Aaron Rodgers looked great. He really proved, I think that in some ways he may have kind of proved the Jets wrong. I mean, it depends on how he plays the rest of the season, but you know, he really just kind of embarrassed the Jets a bit. He really kind of did. And I can't say really all that surprised. I think Aaron Rodgers is motivated when he has a chip on his shoulder, and it's a very it would be a very Aaron Rodgers thing to go to MetLife Stadium or wherever his former team was and just kind of embarrass them. Like, I'm really just not all that surprised.
I'm not surprised by what the Steelers did. I was actually very surprised what the Jets did, and this is where sometimes, or a lot of the time, we have to really take what we see in the preseason with a grain of salt, because a lot of the talk out of the Jets out of the preseason was Justin Fields, how horrible he looked. Well, he looked pretty good on Sunday, and I thought one of the things was, you know, the ability to run by himself. He didn't have to throw the ball that much. I think he connected with Garrett Wilson very, very well, which was something that Rodgers could not do when he was with the Jets was linked up with Garrett Wilson, which I think was actually hurting Wilson's development. And part of that was because when Rodgers came to the Jets, he brought a lot of his guys over, like Randall Cobb and Alan Lazard and whatnot. But the fact that, you have a new head coach there, you've got Fields I think you can connect with Garrett Wilson. I think what'll be interesting to see, Nick D, is what the Jets are on Sunday in week 2. They're home against the Bills. They always play the Bills tough. A lot of the time, I shouldn't say all the time, but most of the time, they actually play the Bills pretty tough at MetLife Stadium. I want to see if there's a repeat of this.
Well, yeah, they did last year too, actually. In fact, I was at that game. And I think it was after, it was soon after Robert Saleh was fired. And the Jets, really, that game could have gone either way. The Jets could have definitely won that game. And I remember MetLife Stadium was riddled with Bills fans. I was shocked at how many Bills fans there were.
And also remember when Rodgers got hurt 4 plays in when he first came to the Jets defense stepped up when he got hurt, had 3 takeaways, and beat the Bills on opening night when Rodgers got hurt with the Achilles injury. So they can play the Bills tough. Now, I don't know if they'll beat the Bills on Sunday, and we'll see what the line is like when we make our picks later in the week. But that'll be a very interesting test because maybe there's a little bit of an emotional hangover from the Bills side coming back as much as they did. Something to watch. I wouldn't even be surprised if the Jets do it, but I'd be very curious to see what Fields and what Garrett Wilson can do for an encore against that Bills team on Sunday.
Yeah, I think also just like it kind of it's not just about winning and losing that game black and white. It's also just kind of like how they look. But like how do the Jets look? That would give me more hope. Like if we come close to beating the Bills, to me there would at least, even if and we start the season 0-2, there's at least a glimmer of hope for the Jets. If they get blown out, I think it's a little different. And the truth is, I don't know what the line's going to be, but the Jets do play the Bills tough, certainly at MetLife Stadium, and including last season.
Yeah, I actually, it's quite a bit of the time. I mean, even in years before that when they had their different changes. But, what the Jets are going to be, I think, is a more of a ground attack game. So, like Breece Hall, who ran for 100 yards on Sunday, I think he's going to be a very important piece. And he looks to be like the Breece Hall that he was like before he had his ACL injury last year. The receiving side's the real question mark. And, that's the one thing because if you look at even the box score, after Garrett Wilson, who had 7 catches for 95 yards, who else do they really have on the receiving side? They don't really have much. Fields only threw the ball 22 times on Sunday. Now, say the Jets get behind early. Let's say the Bills put up 14 points in the first quarter and 14 early points, and they're up by 2 scores after 1. Do you think Justin Fields can throw the ball and get them back in that way? I think he can do it more with his legs, and I think with Breece Hall. But if you fall behind early, it's tough. It's tough to come back like that.
Yeah. No. You're right about that. It's going to be. I think it's going to be tough for them to play from behind. Just looking at the numbers, outside of who the second who had the second most receiving yards for the Jets.
Yeah, it was Breece Hall.
Breece Hall had the second most receiving yards, above, and then Tyler Johnson, and then Mason Taylor, who's the tight end. So really, outside of Garrett Wilson, the Jets really just don't have many target receivers.
But I will tell you too, a couple of things I was noticing too. The line play from the Jets, I thought, was really good on both sides of the ball. They had one of the guys they drafted. I thought they said that didn't allow a pressure or even a sack at all on Sunday. And line play is going to be very important with them. Jets have had a problem for years on defense, not being able to get to the quarterback. They showed they were actually able to do that a little bit on Sunday. So there were some things you definitely liked. I don't think you at this stage you want to be taking moral victories, but with a first-year coach in Aaron Glenn and a first-year GM, the Jets finally may be doing it right, but it's going to take time. We'll see what they could do going forward. There are some things that you like. It was rough because it looked like they actually, they had a 19-10 lead, so they were up. They had a very, very good first half.
You're not talking about blowing leads.
Well, yeah, but this, I think, was definitely a little bit different. But there were some things you like. I'm going to be curious to see how those things carry over into next week.
Yeah. And it might carry over into next week. But overall, I would say I was fairly pleasantly surprised by how well Justin Fields played. And I'll also have to say, like, the Jets couldn't have lost that game without kind of making some really stupid mistakes. Xavier Gibson muffing the kickoff late in the game.
Yeah.
That was rough. That was rough. And I think in that last play, I mean, maybe I'm wrong about this. I thought Justin Fields should have ran it for the first down. Forcing the throw there, I thought was. I mean, maybe it's different on TV from the way it looks, but I thought he had the first down if he ran it himself.
Well, considering that he had been running it a lot, and remember he ran in for 2 scores himself.
Yeah.
So I mean, he had shown that ability. I agree. I was a little surprised by that.
Yeah, so I thought he should have ran it himself. In terms of the receiving core, you're right. They really don't have – right now it looks like they don't really have anybody outside of Garrett Wilson.
Well, the thing is, Garrett Wilson should be the number 1 guy. I mean, that was the thing. When Rodgers was here, I think because of him, Wilson's development took a big hit. So I'm actually glad to see that now that he's back to being the number 1 guy. I think that definitely helps him because he can be a top guy. I mean, of course, he's an Ohio State wide receiver, so of course he has the ability to be a top guy. But that was the one thing when Rodgers left. I said, you know what, I think this is going to help Garrett Wilson out a lot, and I think you definitely saw that on the opening week.
Well, in fairness, last year the Jets had a better receiving core than they do this year. They had many, many more options. I mean, between like Devontae Adams and Randall Cobb and Lazard kind of.
They better guys on paper, but again, they brought in Rodgers guys, and I didn't like that because I felt like that was hurting Garrett Wilson's development. Because of course Rodgers is going to go to his guys. They brought in an OC for him. They brought in receivers for him. They traded for Devontae Adams for him. I mean, that's why I love what Aaron Rodgers said at the end there. Like, if you wanted to stick it to the Jets organization, I'm like, yeah, the same organization that did everything possible to help to make you feel better and to help you, and yet that's what you're doing.
Well, I will. My biggest concern, I'll get to that in a minute. My biggest concern with Garrett Wilson with the Jets' current receiving core is he's going to draw a lot of double teams. That's my biggest concern.
But we'll see who can take up that next step. And I know they're talking about some guy they have that could have that ability, but that's what you're going to find out over the course of the season. It's going to be a growing pains kind of year for them. But it maybe now with the guy goes. The problem you would probably have, though, if you would say is as well as Fields did play, is this sustainable and is he the answer long term? It's hard to see him maybe being the answer long term because he's been in the league now for quite a while.
Yeah, and I'd say he's probably not the answer long term. Although in his defense, he hasn't been in the best situations. Mm-hmm. I mean, he went from the Bears to the Steelers. The Bears are not known for developing quarterbacks, and the Steelers, they can never really get their offense right. So, but yeah, he's probably not the answer long-term. I don't think anybody expects him to be the answer long-term. Although I think the fact that he's younger makes it at least possible that he's the answer long-term and not Aaron Rodgers. I think that's why the Jets wanted him. It was really very much an age factor. Although right now, Aaron Rodgers, I think, is the better player. Look, the thing with Justin Fields is that he might end up being like a Darnold or a Geno Smith, where their reputations were a lot worse than they really deserved. They were just not in the right situations. And I think that's a pretty common thing that we're just seeing come to light with quarterbacks, which is that quarterbacks are often not as bad or as good as the public thinks they are. And that could be the case with Justin Fields also, but the right situation for Justin Fields to turn that image around is not the Jets. Like, the Jets are the team where quarterbacks develop bad reputations, not where they develop good reputations. Like, Sam Darnold repaired his reputation when he went to the Vikings. He didn't go to he didn't go back to another terrible situation to repair his image. So that's like same thing with Geno Smith. He played under Pete Carroll, where he kind of saved his reputation. He didn't go to the Browns. So if anything, the Jets are not the team that it would happen with. But the thing is also, I think that in these situations, I think that teams just get film on guys eventually, and it becomes a little easier to stop them. And he's been in the league for a while, but Justin Fields in the Jets offense, I don't think they're going to look this good. I don't think they're going to continually look this good. But look, I can't get mad at it either. Like, they looked better than I thought they would, and they were 2.5-point favorites. They lost by 2. Like, it's not like this is a game that the Jets had no business losing. This was a game that, if anything, the Jets had no business winning based on, just based on, the Steelers, I think, are just better than the Jets.
Yeah.
And so I can't get too mad at it. Like, I didn't like the Aaron Glenn hire. I think I'm not a fan of it. I think I think that it reminds me a little bit of when the Jets hired Mike McCagnon as the GM. I think Aaron Glenn talks a big game, but hasn't proven it. Now, I'm not saying he can't. I'm always give him a chance, obviously. I'm not writing him off, but it just seems a lot like that to me. Mike McCagnon talked a big game after he replaced John Idzik, who may have been the worst GM in the history of sports.
Yeah.
And then he talked a big game, and he really just didn't do anything. He wasn't a good GM. So I was worried that it could be the same thing with Aaron Glenn. I also think that the Aaron Glenn hire was viewed as was popular amongst Jet fans just because he's a former player. And even though it seems like they're doing the same thing that they did when they hired Saleh and Bowles, which is a defensive coordinator who's never been a head coach before. And I'm not saying that's always a bad move, but when you're a team like the Jets that's done that over and over again and it hasn't worked, it makes me think that it's not crazy to think that it might be the same thing. But here's what Rodgers had to say about the after the game.
You spoke about the meeting with Aaron Glenn on McAfee a few months ago. Beating him, is there significance in that, since he basically told you to your face that he didn't think you were right for that team?
Yes, that's what he did.
So there's significance in beating him for you?
I was happy to beat everybody associated with the Jets.
That is typical Aaron Rodgers. I mean, and I wouldn't have expected, and honestly, I wouldn't have expected anything less from him after the game on Sunday.
I will have to say, now maybe my mind goes somewhere else.
Well, because you're
Props
the fan.
to that
so,
reporter for asking a really good question. I mean, it seems
homework.
kind of obvious, but it's a good question to pry that out of him.
Absolutely, yeah. But I mean, it was a great question, and it was a typical Aaron Rodgers answer.
Yeah. And also, in terms of Aaron Rodgers wanting to beat the Jets, that doesn't surprise me. I also just don't really blame him because he was sort of insulted on his way out, or at least he felt that. I don't know how this final meeting actually went. I think Aaron Rodgers probably stretches the truth a little bit. The Jets say one thing, Aaron Rodgers says another. Realistically, it's probably somewhere in the middle. And given the fact that Aaron Glenn wanted to move on from Aaron Rodgers wanted to beat him to sort of prove him wrong. I mean, to me, if you're a professional athlete and you don't feel that way, that would seem a lot more weird than if you do feel that way. So I can't really get mad at him for wanting to beat the Jets because they're the team that didn't want him at the end of the day. I mean, look, yeah, I guess that, as a competitor, of course you would want to do that. That to me just makes a certain amount of sense. Not all athletes are as honest about it as Aaron Rodgers is, but I think every athlete kind of does feel that way if you really were to ask them. To me, there's no way you wouldn't. There's no way that you wouldn't feel that way if you're Aaron Rodgers as a competitor. So that just is not at all surprising. I don't expect, like you said, I don't expect anything less. I guess on some level, I appreciate the honesty, and I do kind of think the Jets made a mistake moving on from Rodgers. I really kind of do think that. And I may end up being proven wrong, but under the circumstances, yeah, I still kind of think they made a mistake.
It's tough to say because, whenever you have a new GM and a new head coach that comes in, they want their own guys.
Yeah.
Where they don't really want what they were brought into. And I think that was one of the reasons, if not the big reason, why they let Rodgers go.
That doesn't mean that it wasn't a mistake, though.
Well, no, I think both can be right. I think you could be right, and I think what Glenn did wanting to get his own guys in there was right. That's why I don't know. That's why Fields is going to be a real mystery to see if he's a long-term answer, or if he's just going to be a bridge guy for somebody. But and this. I mean, I know you and I are both big college guys. There's a bunch of college guys that could come out after this year, but you know what the problem's going to be, and you can attest this as a Jet fan. Jets are going to win more games. They're going to win games that they probably shouldn't win, and they're going to ruin their draft. They're going to ruin their draft pick, where they'll end up picking maybe like 10 to 15 or so.
Yeah, but what does that do for you? That doesn't do anything. I mean, by the way, Rodgers also would be a bridge pick. No matter what, this year, no matter what, the Jets would have had a bridge quarterback.
But I think there's a better chance of having a long-term answer with Fields because obviously he's younger. So that would be the one thing to watch for. And again, I mean, don't want to take much out of one game, but he did look impressive. And he's got a chip on his shoulder too, considering that the Bears go up on him, and the situation with the Steelers where they were going back and forth with him. Wilson ended up starting towards the end, so he's got a little chip on his shoulder as well. That's why I felt like Sunday could have been the ultimate revenge game, but it ended up working out for Rodgers more. Yeah,
well, the interesting thing is that the Jets bent over backwards to do so much for Rodgers, almost everything he asked for. It doesn't seem like the Steelers are doing that. It seems like, and I guess it's because the Jets I think it's because Aaron Rodgers had a lot more leverage when he went to the Jets. And then when he was on the Jets, he had a lot of leverage because the Jets went all in on him.
Yeah, and you know who that really is on. That's on Woody.
Yeah, that's on the Jets. That's not on Rodgers. I'm not mad at Rodgers for the Jets, giving him a lot of what he wanted. And also, I don't really think that him getting a lot of what he wanted was really always the problem. Him getting a lot of, the Jets getting Devontae Adams really was not the problem. That wasn't why the Jets lost a bunch of games. But in terms of this, it just seems like Aaron Rodgers lost a lot of leverage. I mean, he very clearly did lose a lot of leverage. And, it's and the Steelers also are not the type of organization that the Jets are. They're not the type of organization that will bend over backwards for players.
No, for sure.
Moving on to the Giants, Russell Wilson still named the starter for the Giants for week 2. I should specify that.
Yeah.
They didn't look good. I actually like the Giants to cover against the Commanders. The Giants did not look good. You're a Giant fan.
Yeah. You and I both took the Giants, by the way, +6.
Yeah.
Sunday. And I'll say this. So I think the thing that really sucked about Sunday, honestly, was the offense. Now, to be fair, I mean, look, people are reacting like the Giants lost 55-0 on Sunday. I mean, and this is where we have to really the preseason sometimes is very misleading because all the talk really was about, Dart and that maybe he should have started. I think this was the right decision to start Russell week 1. I think it's the right decision to start him week 2. But if we watch the game Sunday, to be fair, the defense actually played pretty well. They got to the quarterback. They got to Daniels a few times. The thing that was rough was, Micah McFadden, who is a pretty good linebacker, got hurt very early on. I mean, of course, you can't go halfway through the first quarter of the first game of the season without a very significant injury. Now, the good thing is, as of now, it does not look like it's a broken leg. It does not look like it is a season-ending injury. We'll know more as the week goes on. But the Giant defense actually played pretty well. Brian Burns got to the quarterback a few times. They didn't really – Daniels didn't really have an all-world game, but it's just the offense. The offensive line, again, looked putrid, some things that have not changed yet. Russell Wilson looked like he was 60 out there, which was not great. And they weren't really able to get the ball to Malik Neighbors a lot. I actually thought one of the better players on offense, not only just with running, but also with blocking, was Scatterbo. And Wan'Dale Robinson actually made some catches. So there were some things that were all right. I mean, the thing was, it didn't matter if it was Russell Wilson starting. It wouldn't matter if it was Jameis Winston or it was Jackson Dart. doesn't matter who the quarterback is. If you don't have a good offensive line to protect them, it doesn't matter who's going to be out there. You're not going to win the game. And I didn't think the Giants would win this game. I thought they'd be competitive. I thought they'd keep this game close. I thought it was a little bit of a bloated number out there for Sunday, but there were some things that you liked and there's some things that you didn't like. And the announcement came out on Monday that, Wilson's going to start week 2. To nobody, it shouldn't be to anybody's surprise. I mean, remember, this is the same Giants organization, Brian Dable, who gave Daniel Jones every opportunity to keep the starting job last year until he couldn't do it anymore. So going to stay with Russell Wilson is the right decision. Now, I will tell you this. If I was on with you before the season, we were talking about this. I think there was one big mistake, though. And I think that was name. And I know he had a good preseason, but again, preseason, it can be very misleading sometimes. I think naming Jackson Dart QB2 was a major mistake for 2 reasons. And you're already seeing it for one. I think that he should have been QB3 because I think Jameis should be, because by naming him QB2, you're going to rush him in case Russell Wilson gets hurt, which at his age is still very, very, especially with this offensive line, is certainly a possibility. And number 2, if you have instances like Sunday where Wilson doesn't play great, you're going to have everybody in this fan base come out and beg for Dart to take over and be the guy. He can't do that yet. He's not ready yet. I know he had a good preseason, but you put him out there, he is going to get killed out there. It's one thing to play against defensive lines in the preseason. It's another thing to play them in the National Football League in the regular season action.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And generally speaking, look, I'm not a believer that we have to wait for quarterbacks to get PhDs until they can actually play. Sometimes we hear about that with quarterbacks for years. Like when Bryce Petty was the quarterback, was on the Jets, we kept hearing he's not ready yet. He's not ready yet. I was like, well, maybe that just means he sucks. But there is something to be said about quarterbacks waiting to start, and that seems to work pretty well. I mean, it worked very well for Mahomes. It worked very well for Tom Brady. Like that just seems to work fairly well. Who?
Eli,
so there is something to be said about that. And, just sitting, like, I think rookies sitting is sometimes when quarterbacks go out there too early, it ends up ruining them. I mean, you look at Anthony Richardson and what, like, the reputation that he has now. I mean, maybe Anthony Richardson could have benefited from sitting behind a Daniel Jones from earlier in his career. So it's not really such a bad idea. I also think that it's generally better for a quarterback like Dart, a rookie, to bring him in as if he's a second string or a third string when they need him, because for performance reasons or if somebody gets injured, whatever the case may be. That's better than them starting him and then having to pull him because he's not playing well. Like the latter is a much worse situation. It's much worse for his confidence. It's just a worse situation.
I mean, the thing was too, and I kind of put this out on Twitter at Montalbano NY2 on the game Sunday. It was, I wonder if second half of the game, if they were going to go to Dart, maybe just to try and shake things up a little bit. But the thing is too, is Brian Dable just doesn't do this. He doesn't make quarterback changes in game, and he very rarely makes a quarterback change in season. Again, he gave Daniel Jones every opportunity last year to keep the starting job. And what ended up happening was he played like crap against one of the worst teams in the league last year in the Panthers in Germany. And then they probably determined that they had a bye week afterwards, and they made the switch over to DeVito.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's why I thought you one of the other reasons why you keep Jameis as the number 2 guy and Dart 3, because I think Russell Wilson is only good for about half a season max. I mean, we saw that last year with the Steelers. I think he's only good for about half a season. But if that's the case, do you want to really be throwing in Dart with this offensive line with this kind of torturous schedule? I mean, that's the thing, too. We have to realize, too, it doesn't matter who the quarterback is. This schedule is torture. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, it almost looks like they have kind of a favorable matchup of the Cowboys, but the Cowboys always play the Giants rough, and I don't expect the Giants to win Sunday against the Cowboys either. Especially,
well, then they play the Chiefs, and then they play the Chargers. There's a really good chance the Giants start the season off 0-4.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, I think actually right now of those 4 teams, the most favorable one might be the Chargers, because that's going to be a west to east coast trip early window game for the Chargers. But Jim Harbaugh, that doesn't faze him. He did that. He won 3 games last year, coming west to east, playing early window games. So that doesn't faze him at all. The thing is with the Giants, I thought at max they were a 6-win team, and it's the way they are the 6-win team. Like let's take Sunday for instance. Let's say they lose that game like 27-23. Let's say they're competitive throughout. Then you know what? You at least leave the game and you feel like, hey, you know what? We competed. Offense looked good. Defense played all right. The only thing you took out of that game Sunday was that you still have a major question mark. You have major concerns still in offense. The defense is all right, but I don't care whose defense you have. I don't care if you have the 85 Bears defense. If they're still out of the field because your offense can't give you anything, then it just it just doesn't work. You know, the other turning point I felt like too was the Giants actually were able to get down to the end zone in the first half and actually got a new set of downs on a defensive penalty, and they only could cash in for 3.
Yeah,
that's always been a problem with this team. They always, when you get into the red zone, they cannot get it in, and that's that. You got to do that. You got to take advantage, especially when you're given a second opportunity. And Wilson part of it was he had no time to throw, but part of it also was that he was missing guys too.
Yeah.
That's what was very, very frustrating. So the thing I took out of it was
under 50% of his passes.
And some of these throws, I mean, he was overshooting guys. There was guys that were actually open in the end zone that he was missing. He was throwing sidearm passes. I mean, you know what? He looked like an aging quarterback.
Yeah, and also the Giants' run game was rough. I mean,
Agreed.
Russell Wilson they had 74 total rushing yards, and Russell Wilson had 44 of them, more than half.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a big issue too. I mean,
Scatterbo actually looked good. He almost looked like he was playing fullback. He actually did some good some good blocking. That was really he actually did some good blocking, but that was really all he was good for.
But he hardly had any carries. They hardly used him.
I don't get that. You know, I like Scatterbo a lot, and I think he actually could almost be a steal if he's given the option. But you're right. If you can't establish a run game either, you can't be playing one-dimensional kind of football and be successful.
Yeah, I mean, in total, Tyrone Tracy had 10 carries for like 24 yards.
Yeah, and I'll tell you right now, you're going up against a Cowboys team that they brought when they traded Parsons away. Who did they get? They got Kenny Clark. What can Kenny Clark do? He's a great run stopper.
Yeah.
So that's why I really think they're going to be running into a big problem. And you know how the Cowboys love to stick it to the Giants. I think it's going to be a very long afternoon again on Sunday over there at AT&T Stadium.
And by the way, this is against the Commanders. The Commanders are not exactly known for their defense.
Yeah, I agree. And I know they went out and got some pieces and shored some things up, but I mean, the thing was too, that's the thing. The Giants defense didn't play that bad. You know, Daniels wasn't outstanding. If anything, it was that running back, that 3-named running back that actually was really doing a lot of the damage for the Commanders. Remember, they traded away Robinson. So they really didn't have a whole lot. It wasn't Austin Eckler, the aging guy, but that's the thing that really annoyed you was, your defense actually kept you in that game, but your offense gave you nothing. Yeah. Against a team that was horrible last year. And what were the Commanders horrible at defensively last year too? Stopping the run. And you couldn't do jack against that. That's where it gets to be frustrating. I think the anti-Giants media and even some of the Giant fans, I think their frustration is set in the wrong area.
Yeah. No, I get that. But and the thing is, you're never going to you're never going to win games if you score 6 points. You could be playing Iowa football and you're not going to win scoring 6 points.
By the way, were they the only team that didn't score a touchdown on Sunday?
The Giants?
Yeah. I'll look at it. I believe they were the only team that did not score a touchdown.
Probably. I think that sounds about right. Even the Saints scored a touchdown.
The Dolphins scored one.
Yeah.
Devon Achane scored one. Yeah. So, I don't know.
Yeah, you're right. I think they are the only team.
Texans didn't score one either. It was.
Oh, there was 3 field goals?
Yeah, 3 field goals. So, all right. So, it's not all that bad.
Okay. Well,
so they're not the only team that didn't score on Sunday. But you get my point, though.
Yeah.
I mean, and now you're going to run up against another good run defense. You're going to run up against a good run defense team on Sunday. Russell Wilson's going to have to do something. And, he lays flat again. Those calls are going to keep calling. And that's why I think it was a major mistake to make Dart QB2.
Yeah.
As great as he was in the preseason, you have to take it with a grain of salt. You brought in 2 veterans for a reason. I think that's why you should have had Jameis as QB2. If Winston's QB3, he shouldn't even be on the roster then. You should just trade him and see somebody can get a backup and get, like, I don't know, 7th round pick or something.
Yeah, the preseason doesn't really give you much of anything.
I mean, it gives you hope, but you also have to be realistic about it.
Moving the Goalposts is presented by Playback. Watching sports is more fun with others, but we spend too much time watching alone. Playback is a virtual space where communities can stream live sports together with everyone perfectly synced up. Creators can hop on stage, deliver their own play-by-play analysis and commentary, and invite viewers up for Q&A. Playback makes watching sports fully interactive and a social experience. From playing fantasy sports, rubbing your favorite players and teams, and watching with the commentators and communities you care about. Win or lose, sports are best enjoyed together. Join our community by going to playback.tv/ETB network to find out more, including our live stream schedule. And now back to the show. I do want to talk about this outrage over these red zone commercials. First of all, I think it was kind of, it was somewhat of a mistake for Chris Hansen to, Scott
Hansen. You're good.
Wrong hands. I don't know. I always screw up the different hands. Scott Hansen to say in an interview, Red Zone is no longer commercial free. Look, I put commercials in air quotes for a reason. These were, I think it was, 4 15-second ads.
Correct.
For like DraftKings over a span of 7 hours.
You know, the thing though is, Nick D, is if Hansen didn't say anything, then people would still be going after him. And if you remember last year, towards the end of Red Zone, he was saying at the start of the shows, 7 hours of Red Zone football. So this is not a new thing. He did this towards the end of last season. So people are up in arms about that. And the thing was, they're 4 15-second ads that aren't taking up the full screen and taken away from the coverage of the games. Like, if you're a big golf fan, like with CBS and NBC, they actually do this where they actually show, like, I'm just looking at my TV right now as I talk to you, where they actually show playing through, an option called playing through. And it's a side-by-side thing. It's all, you know what it looks like? It's like what you and I are watching. Like if you're watching this show on YouTube, it's what our boxes are right now. Where like where you are right now is the golf, and where I am is the ad.
Yeah, pretty much.
So I just think it's just like, you know what it is. Also, it's just people need to find things to complain. They just need to complain about everything.
But also, like, it's obviously not Scott Hansen who makes that decision. He's just the host. He's not the one who makes the decision. Like, it's not him who's saying.
It's not him. It's not ESPN. I mean, it's
the NFL who's making these decisions.
Of course, because it's about it's about the almighty dollar. The NFL, which is the most successful, one of the business of obviously pro sports, but I mean one of the most successful businesses in the whole country. If they can make an extra dollar, that's what they do. Why do you think we're playing international games in 8 different countries this year?
Yeah, because they want to grow. They want to grow the sport to something more global.
But you know what, though? And it's working.
It is working.
It's working more than NFL Europe did.
The thing is, if it weren't working, they wouldn't keep doing it. Like it clearly is work, and it's not even like they did it for like they've been doing this for well over a decade. And certainly in football and basketball, playing games overseas. Even in baseball, they're doing it now a little bit too. And it's obviously working. Otherwise, they wouldn't keep doing it.
Well, I would kind of debate about the baseball thing being successful. I'm
not saying the baseball one is successful. I'm talking about
think it is. I mean, the playing in Japan is successful, but playing in London is not. I mean, people can sit there and say anything they want. Those stadiums are full. The baseball in London is not successful.
No.
Football is, but I mean,
a lot of the people there are probably Americans anyway that are going to watch their teams.
Yeah, but I'll tell you right now, college football, I mean, NFL football, those are not only fans of the teams, those are people that are in the country that like that go to the games. We've seen that in Germany. I mean, you've seen that in all the countries. I mean, Brazil. We're going to see it in Ireland in week 4 when we start week 4 Sunday morning in Dublin. College football starts their season. They have a game that's always in Dublin every year in week 0.
Yeah, this year it was the Kansas State Iowa State game.
Yeah, and let's hope that there's not humidity or firework issues for the NFL when they're there in a couple of weeks. But but just go back to this for 1 second. People just need things to complain about everything. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. People are making it sound like that they're showing commercials, like they're cutting away from the games to show commercials. They're not doing that. They're ad reads that like hardly disrupt anything. It's not like in the middle of a play they're going to stop it.
Cut away from the audio. I mean, that's no different if Scott Hansen was reading a highlight, showing a highlight and reading what actually happened over the announcers.
Yeah. I do.
Much to do about nothing.
Yeah, we do have to. Peter Schrager versus Ryan Clark. This was a debate on Friday. It started off on Friday. I think it was on Get Up.
Yep.
And Ryan Clark, they were talking about, I don't know, CeeDee Lamb, had something to do with the Cowboys-Eagles game.
Yeah.
And Ryan Clark pulled the "you didn't play" card, or this is the non-player in you, something like that, which I think is frequently a dumb argument in general, because you're not arguing with the point, you're arguing with the credentials. It would be like if somebody critiqued this podcast and then I said, that's the non-podcaster in you. I don't think you have to be a player in order to make a good point. I mean, yes, being a player could be relevant experiences in some situations, but I don't think that's fair. But I'll play the audio of what happened.
This morning, are you feeling okay? You look at A.J. Brown, which is this number one wide receiver who got one target all night, and then you got CeeDee Lamb.
But when was the one target?
That's the target. But I'm saying,
when was the one target?
I'm saying you could have it both ways.
54 seconds left in the game on 2nd and 11. It was the one target. He runs the out route.
You wake up this morning saying
got
A.J. Brown had a better day than CeeDee Lamb.
But you know what you wake up saying though? A.J. Brown's team is 1-0.
Of course,
right? Like that's what
I get it.
But the thing is this though, and we shouldn't do this on TV, and so I apologize if people think this is rude. That's the non-player.
Oh, stop! CeeDee Lamb is.
Let me tell you why. I'm not
looking at fantasy football, Ryan. I'm not. Don't belittle me like that. I could come in and say, as 3 ex-players are saying one thing, and give an alternative perspective that maybe CeeDee Lamb did play well. And
Peter, what I need for you to do is not get mad and let me finish for one.
Okay, go on.
It wasn't about you. It was going to be about me.
Okay.
As a player, I can't speak for CeeDee Lamb. I'm speaking for me.
All right. It's hard for me to react to that completely because I'm not even sure the point that either one of them was making. It sounded like Peter Schrager was making a pro-CeeDee Lamb argument, and Ryan Clark was making the anti-CeeDee Lamb argument. Given the fact of what they were arguing about, pulling the you're a non-player argument really just doesn't make any sense and seems like kind of an irrelevant argument, because I don't really think you have to be a former player to understand. I mean, look, I'm not a head coach, but head coaches have made some really boneheaded decisions. And I think it's okay to say that just because, like, I think it's okay to say that Pete Carroll made a stupid decision in the Super Bowl to throw the ball at the goal line that ended up getting intercepted. Pete Carroll knows way more about football than I do, but I think it's pretty safe to say that was a bad decision. It's a similar type of thing. Like, why are you arguing with his credential and not with what he was actually saying? It didn't seem like they were talking about something that only a player would actually know. And there's only a very narrow number of things that a player can truly make that argument about. So I just thought it was stupid.
Well, the crazy thing was with that is you hear how Clark sets this up also by saying what he said before he.
Yeah.
I mean, when and I forget exactly what he said there before he went to that's the non-player in you. But you knew that it was gonna end that way when they say it's like, I don't mean to, like, I'm not saying like it would be like if I had a conversation with you about a team and I'm like, well, I don't want to say this and be biased about the team, but then I end up being biased about the team.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the thing is with this is like, Ryan Clark's been in hot water before, but I mean, ESPN just gave him an extension last year. And if people want to really make a big deal about this, these two appeared together on NFL Live on Monday because Dan Orlovsky was running a little bit behind. And they had a fist bump on the air. So I don't know if there was an apology. I mean, I know Ryan Clark went out on social media and apologized. I don't know if there was an apology to him like face to face. But that's what happened. Shows like Get Up. You have these kind of this debate stuff. But yeah, I mean, the thing is, you don't usually have it where you have an ex-player and Schrager, who obviously is not a player, but you don't see it on those kind of shows. Usually, Get Up, you have obviously Greeny, and you have to be fair, actually, you do have former players and you do have beat reporters. So actually, it is true that you have guys like Schrager on that as well. But
beat reporters also are. I mean, no, they never played, but they're for anybody who didn't, outside of players and coaches, for people who didn't play, beat reporters have a pretty close up, like they are really close to everything that happens in games.
Right. Exactly.
It's not quite like, he was talking to some random fan. But yeah, either way, I mean, look, I don't really think it's a cause of that big of a beef between the two of them. I don't think Peter Schrager was that offended by it. I think it was just, by the way, the funny thing with Ryan Clark is that he was actually like live tweeting in the game and then in the middle of it tweeted an apology.
Yes, I did see that. You're right. He's like, oh, wait, let me put this apology out there and I'll just make sure I just get it out there and I'll hide it in between all the other tweets. Yeah.
Yeah. It was just like between, it was in the middle of, hold on.
I really don't know how much of a big deal this really is. I mean, I know Ryan Clark's been in some hot water before, but I mean, I think we're making a little too much out of this.
Yeah, I don't think
Get Up is kind of a debate show. And I will say this, as somebody who watches the show either live or DVRs it, and it pains me to say this. I mean, we do know how pro-Cowboy they are, and they talk about them a lot. I mean, they admitted that one of the guys on the show actually admitted that quiet part out loud, I remember once. And it's like, oh, thank you. You said the quiet part out loud. I appreciate that. I know how pro-Cowboy that is. Yes, we get it.
I think so I pulled it up. So this was all within not like it wasn't. Hold on a second. I think it was on Saturday that he ended up tweeting the apology.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here it is. He says at 10:42. Yeah, so it was in the middle of like live tweeting. So at 10:36, he tweets, "Batted balls, man." It was about one of the. I guess one of the college games. And then he tweets out the apology at 10:42. So 10:36 to 10:42. And then at 10:43, a minute later, he just tweets, "Justin Reed's absence being felt in these zone pressures." So this is within like a minute. He buries the apology.
You know what that almost feels like a little bit? And I'll admit this, if you follow me on Twitter at Montalbano, why I do this, it's almost like he scheduled that apology in advance and he scheduled it to go out at a certain time. But then he was live tweeting about something else and he put it in and it just fell in between those times.
That's certainly possible, but he scheduled it for 10:42 p.m. That seems like an odd time.
Yeah, see, I'm not saying that's what he did, but you almost can make the case that it's like, and I've done this. I've scheduled stuff in advance, and then if something else breaks or if I have an opinion about something, I'll sneak in between the scheduled posts.
Yeah, or maybe he had it in the drafts and wasn't sure if he wanted to post it yet and then decided to post it. That may have been it. Maybe like his second, sometimes like a tweet takes a long time to send. Maybe his second tweet took a long time to send, but still, like there's no way around it. Like he was just in the middle of live tweeting and just in the middle of it, put out the apology. Which honestly, I don't think this was worthy of a public apology. He probably didn't really need to do that. He could have just apologized to him personally because that's really just all it was. Like I don't know if this, it almost reminds me of I consider myself a man of faith. And
right. Part of it also, though, too, with all this is we have so many like media sites that put out stuff, whether it's people that cover the media or or accounts that like to just post every big thing that's said, like awful announcing is like that they'll post anything that kind of seems either controversial or significant. And this did seem kind of significant. I mean, it was a heated debate on Get Up. And I mean, you see that a few times depending on the topic and who's on there. But you usually also see it between ex-players. And that's maybe why it's like that. But, I mean, this stuff happens. I mean, like Kornheiser and Wilbon on PTI, they'll get into a debate. I mean, maybe not heated, but they'll get into debates and stuff.
Yeah, well, that's the point of a lot of these shows is debate. Like First Take is as big as it is because all it is debates.
It's all it is debate. Yeah.
And by the way, it's been like that for a long time, and it works. I think people I think that people like sports debate shows more than they are willing to admit that they do.
Why do you think? Why do you think First Take brings Mad Dog on every Wednesday?
Because he has such strong opinions about everything.
Exactly. Yeah,
and is willing to debate them
against the captain of all captains, like that, Stephen A.
Yeah, so that's why they do it, and that's why Stephen A. Smith is so popular because he's the king, and why Skip Bayless was so popular. I mean, I think that it's one of those things. To me, sports debate shows are kind of like the reality TV or fast food of like sports media. People like it a lot more than people say they don't like it, but the numbers prove people really do like it.
Yeah, and I think you've seen why like FS1 has tried to do their own things like that, where with like First Things First or any of their morning show. Now they're trying to have these kind of debate style shows. So I think they think it's popular and everybody wants to listen to it.
Yeah, like that's the point. It's like if it really were so bad, people wouldn't it wouldn't work so well.
Makes you wonder why Around the Horn is not on anymore.
Yeah, because it's not that type of show.
And it's the original one. I mean, Around the Horn and Pardon the Interruption were the original ones.
Yeah. I mean, Around the Horn was kind of a debate show, but it seemed more like
it was debate. No, it was. I mean, they even said it's the show of competitive banter. I mean, of course, and it always will be.
Yeah, it's like that just seems to be how it is. And by the way, what do all the shows on Fox Sports that got canceled, what do they all have in common? None of them were debate shows.
Yeah.
I mean, First Things First, that survived, and it's doing really well because it's a debate show. At least it's not quite like First Take is, but it is a debate show.
Yes.
Or there's one guy, the other guy, and a moderator, and that just is the stuff that seems to work. And that's, I guess, what seems to work now on all the shows. Briefly, I want to talk some college football. We didn't even get to college football. It's a good thing I have my college football podcast, which you can watch.
And it was, to be fair, I mean, we're coming off of week 2, and I always say this: week 1's a thriller, week 2 is a dud.
Yeah,
with the exception, honestly, of this game right here.
Yeah, South Florida upset Florida. Now I know Colin Cowherd has a segment called Colin Right, Colin Wrong, and it says where Colin was right and then where Colin was wrong. This is a good example of where Nick was right. I was right about this. I remember on Unnecessary Wagers, I said, you got to take South Florida first half plus the 9.5. I was totally right about that. I should have actually taken it a step further and just said, take South Florida. South Florida always plays Florida tough. And I don't know what it is. I mean, first, like I saw this game. Of course it was, I don't know what it is with Florida, with all their games. A lot of their games end up getting lost because of a stupid personal foul. In this case, it was another spit gate. In a span of, it almost looks like it was inspired by Jalen Carter. And or the time when Marco Wilson threw the guy's shoe, which ended up which was like one of the Dan Mullen's last games. I mean, like, I don't know what it is with Florida with all of the, like, they create like these new personal fouls. But I got to tell you, this is a game, if you're Florida, that you got to win. It's a home game against South Florida, a non-Power 4 team. You got to win that. You got to win this game.
They paid South Florida $500,000 to play this game. And I'll be honest with you, Nick D, when you look at this game, when you look at the end of the season, this is the game that is going to seal Napier's fate down there in Florida.
Yeah.
I don't see. I mean, the schedule the rest of the way out. You want to talk about a brutal schedule the rest of the way out? Oh my God! This is the kind of schedule that I wish Notre Dame would play, because then it would justify them. People would be like, all right, they're independent, but they play murderer's row of opponents. I mean, my goodness, they got to play the rest of the way out. It's like,
yeah, their schedule's a gauntlet.
I mean, Florida may not make a bowl game, and after being ranked this year, I mean, if they make a bowl game, I would be impressed. But I mean, a 6-win season, I think, still seals his fate.
So for the next 4 weeks, or 4 games, I should say. They play LSU, at Miami, at home against Texas, and then on the road at A&M. It's totally plausible that Florida ends up starting the season 1-5.
I think, man.
I'm not saying I think that's necessarily
but think about it though.
Look, on the road at LSU, that's going to be tough. They're playing. I don't know how I feel about Miami, but it's still early in the season.
That's the one I think they could. Of those 4 games, I think that's the only one they might have a chance at.
I agree. I think Texas is going to be really hard, and Texas A&M is probably going to be really hard too.
College Station is hell to play in.
Yeah, and at Miami,
I know we went in there last year and won, but
the thing with Miami though is that it's September 20th. Miami's usually still good at that point, and then it gets a little
battle of head coaches who could gaff more.
Yeah,
or Mario Cristobal.
I mean, that's true. That's true. Like, if he doesn't if he doesn't just go into victory formation. But the thing with Florida is that, I think Florida usually isn't really all that bad, but their schedule is just so difficult. Like, if they played in the ACC, they would actually often have good records. They would be like one of those ACC teams like Syracuse. Like, Syracuse often has good records only because they play weak schedules. I think Florida is almost like the reverse, which is that they're not all that bad, but they just have bad records because their schedule is always just so difficult.
I agree.
Anyway, so by the way, another team that's come back, Florida State, totally come back. By the way, I know we didn't get to any sort of bad beats because I had some rough. I had a few. I had a rough week in fantasy, largely because of the Bengals.
I know
that was rough. But another somewhat bad beat was the Ole Miss Kentucky under. I had the under 50.5. Kentucky kicks that field goal, that gimme field goal at the end to put it over. That was rough. That game should not have gone over.
I tell you, this week, fantasy-wise, I have 3 leagues, lost all 3 of them. My pro picks, I had brutal bad beats all across the board. And, college, too. Plenty of college football every week, bad beats. Watch Sports Center with SVP in the bad beats segment. Some of them are really, really bad. Yeah, that was another bad one, too.
Yeah. So anyway, that's our show this week. I'm Nick DiMartino. That's Johnny Montalbano. We'll be back next week, next Wednesday. You can see us next Wednesday on another edition of Move the Goalpost. See you guys then.
We'll see ya.